I sometimes feel like the unluckiest person on the planet where it's like I got food out of the, 20,000 things that could, be I could become addicted to. And it's a truly for those that haven't thought about that, it is a truly evil feeling of like, my God, that I have to eat every day.
Welcome to Breaking Stereotypes with Todd and Tootsie. Today we're joined by Ben Davis, who's had a lifelong struggle with food addiction. Ben has lost over 100 pounds several times in his life, only to gain it back. Despite running 6 marathons, completing 2 Ironman triathlons, being on the cover of Runner's World, and he's even walked across America. Recently, Ben became the heaviest weight he's ever been in his life at 439 pounds. And so now Ben is attempting to do it all over again. He wants to lose 200 pounds, and he's documenting his journey every day on TikTok. So before we get started with Ben, I'd just like to ask our viewers to hit like and subscribe to our channel, as it will help the YouTube algorithm and help our new channel to grow.
Welcome, Ben. Thanks
How's
for
it
being
going?
on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
The first question I have is, what do you think the stereotypes of someone who suffers from obesity is?
Yeah, it's a lot. You get a lot of the movie stereotype of people being cruel. I found is not necessarily accurate. You see a lot of at 440 pounds. A lot of people just don't make eye contact. You notice, a lot of people doing the thing where it's like, hey, I don't want to get caught looking. And so a lot of, as I've been in different parts of my life where I'm fit and active and thinner, you get a lot more eye contact. You get a lot of, affirming looks and cordial greetings. But when you're 250 pounds overweight, a lot of people are just kind of afraid to get caught looking. And so it's, as I've gotten fitter and fitter, in my life, I notice just a greater quantity of interactions. People are friendlier because they don't feel necessarily awkward about interacting, I guess. And so, the stereotypes personally of trying to maybe overcompensate with humor. I think those are accurate. The big funny guy, and so you feel sometimes I don't have a lot to offer in the traditional sense of being attractive, so I'm going to come up in here and kind of be funny and try to make people laugh, maybe as a defense mechanism, I would say. So those are accurate. Being the big funny guy that keeps the crowd lively, I guess. Those are a couple for sure.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we were talking about prior to this podcast starting was that some of the other stereotypes that we were kind of thinking of, which and definitely in different time periods in your life you did not meet that, you did break that stereotype, was kind of being lazy, and maybe being uneducated, as to taking care of your body,
Sure.
Things like that as well. And it's something that food addiction doesn't usually, isn't the first thing in people's minds. I think maybe nowadays there's more awareness of that, but it's something that I just, again, I think typically it's kind of more just laziness. And and I really want to confront that because I think it's much deeper than that.
Yeah, it's my perception is in real life, maybe at a restaurant or if I'm in a park with people, there's quite a bit when given the luxury of anonymity, people say if I'm on Reddit and I'm reading about something where, like obese people on airplanes, those articles, or, a fat tax on sugary drinks or certain, hot topics like that come up every so often, people kind of show their true colors. And it's always if they're not taking care of themselves, it's not society's, responsibility to take care of them. And and it always sounds so easy when you put it like that. Well, if they would just, take care of themselves, society wouldn't have to take care of them. And even I, in 2010, made a viral video, and the tagline was, and I was 23 when I made this video. The tagline was, "If you want to do it, all you have to do is do it." And it didn't take many years after that I realized that is such a stupid sentence that I said. There are certain sentences that people say when someone loses weight. A common thing they'll say is, all you have to do is eat less and move more. That's all I did is I ate less and I moved more. And it minimizes the monstrous feat that it is to lose weight and to keep it off. And so I look back at myself and that sentence of, if you want to do it, all you have to do is do it. And it's just so idiotic. And I'm mad at myself for that, because it's not that easy. In fact, it's way harder than the easiness of that sentence would at its best be in reality. It's so deep. It's such a deep-seated issue, this chemical addiction to food and the comfort of eating, that there's no sentence that you can say, because if that were true, if it was as simple as eating less and moving more, we wouldn't be obese. I mean, it's the biggest struggle being this big. And so if it were that easy, there would not be obesity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We appreciate your candor so much. In chatting with you earlier, we sort of discovered this with you, that you said you have a physical dependency, a chemical addiction to food. And you shared that there is addiction in your family history, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my dad dealt with a pretty bad methamphetamine addiction in the early 90s. And he's since become clean and become a drug counselor for those that are dealing with substance abuse of different kinds. And in one of our conversations, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I said, I wonder if it's the literal taste of food. And he said, I would venture a guess that it's not. And so we did an experiment where, we went out. There's a Sex and the City episode too, where we went out and I would eat the food, or I would chew the food, and then I would spit it out. And then we waited 20 minutes. I did a whole meal, waited 20 minutes, and I was like, that didn't do anything for me. And it's literally the act of consuming and having that food inside you, the comfort that comes with chewing and swallowing and feeling full. It's a whole thing. And so that told us that it's not literally putting the needle in your vein. You don't like that part of it. You like the feeling of having consumed it. And so it's a very interesting concept, to where there is a chemical aspect of this that it's not just me. It's probably common throughout obesity, I would think, is that it's not the taste of food, it's the activity, it's the comfort, it's what it evokes from maybe childhood habits, or meals with families and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think that there has actually been studies that have shown that certain properties in food are the same as drugs or sex or whatever, so they light up certain parts of the brain that that is going to, just like an opiate would be, or something else, that you're going to hit the pleasure center, and then you're going to experience a dopamine rush and things of that nature. And so can you walk us a little bit through your history, as far as saying, okay, there were certain points in time when you said, okay, enough is enough, I can't keep doing this, I have to change my life. What was that process like for you, and how did you kind of take action? And because you said several times that you had lost over 100 pounds, which is an incredible feat.
Yeah. the first time I was aware of my weight was in Miss Corbett's fifth grade homeroom math class, aware of it in a way that it mattered socially. I think there was a girl named Amanda, and she was beautiful. And I got up the courage to ask her out to be my girlfriend. And uh, she responded, Ben, you're funny. I think you're great, but you're way too fat. And so that was like, oh my God, that matters. That matters. And so it wasn't until 10th or 11th grade though that I was mature enough to, and that stuck with me. And so I always felt, I'm not attractive. I might be funny. I might, be likable, but I'm not attractive. And so in 10th grade, I said, I want to run a mile. It was, I want to see if I can run a mile. And then after a few weeks, I did. And then I wanted to run to my good friend Cheney's house, who I had a crush on, and then over that summer, I ran to her house every day. We were good friends, and I lost 100 pounds over the course of 4 or 6 months or whatever. But throughout high school and college, and back in 2009, 2010, it was always I was young enough to where it wasn't a life or death issue. It was I was doing this for these superficial or vain reasons. It was to be liked, to get girls. It was all the silly reasons that a 20-year-old would lose weight. And so now it's more about, man, I struggle to get up off the couch. I struggle to tie my shoes. I struggle in all these ways where we bought a really cool old house that we're renovating, and I can't literally get on the floor and nail stuff into the baseboards. I can't help. And now at 35 years old, it's like things aren't going to get easier. I'm like, if I stayed the same weight 10 years from now, it's not going to be easier to get off the couch or to play with my kids. When we have kids, it's always going to get more difficult year by year. And at 440 pounds, we're not talking about 20 or 30 pounds overweight where you're just kind of a big guy. We're talking about a heart attack at 38 is not unheard of. At 250 pounds but being overweight, it wouldn't be unheard of to hear a 40-year-old had a heart attack and died. And so I'm having all these bigger thoughts. I'm married. I want to have kids soon, and now it's life or death. It's the struggle to get up off the couch or, getting out of breath when you're walking around a convention center. Those are things that matter in life, simple things, the things we take for granted. It's just a struggle to do. And so that's where I'm coming at. Coming at it from that point of view now.
Mm-hmm. So can you bring us back a little bit when you got to the point where you were doing, very, highly competitive extreme events like marathons or, walking across the country, Ironmans for sure. There's different types of triathlons, and people who don't know triathlons, Ironman is the most extreme of them. And so you were really into that. And then was there a point where you just said, I don't want to do this anymore? I don't want to kind of live this lifestyle where I'm, entrenched in doing these really, difficult physical events.
Yeah.
And you just kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to live life and enjoy my life, but I don't really want to do this anymore.
No, there's that era of my life was probably the best era of my life as far as, just being content and enthusiasm to do these races, specifically with my dad and brother. I mean, you doing these things is amazing, but to do them with my dad and brother took it to another level. And so, no, there was never a moment where it's like, I don't want to do these triathlons, but what goes into an Ironman that's where it's like, God, that's 10 months of, just 40 hours of training per week. It's the day to day goes away, the burn, the passion to like you've got to race 6 months from now and you've got to go bike 75 miles and jog 5 miles. It's those that kind of slip away from you where it's you kind of justify taking a week off or 2 weeks off, and then before you know it, you're kind of behind. And so that is a slow fade that burned out. But no, I mean, if I could flip a switch, that was where I felt the most alive, is being involved in those races and like like swallowing the food. Having done an Ironman or having done a marathon, is you can't beat that feeling. I mean, it's having done those things feels cooler than how bad or cumbersome the training becomes. So no, I mean that's where I would be if I could just flip a switch.
Mm-hmm.
So you reach the mountaintop, multiple times, whether it's finishing the marathon, completing the Ironman, walking across America. So you had that amazing feeling. So what happened that had you literally go all the way back down to the bottom of the mountain?
Yeah.
Like, what caused you to kind of fall so far?
Yeah, I'm definitely a millennial in the age that grew up with video games, and having parents that trusted their kids enough to stay home alone after school from a pretty young age. And so we kind of fended for ourselves, my siblings and I. And so it was a lot of video games, a lot of, frozen dinners or pizzas. And so I think those formed a lot of habits, the happiness and the rush of getting to play video games and eat whatever you want. I think that formed me, that formed some of my habits and my comfort. And so I grew up adoring video games and the friendships that I made through those. And so in 2012, my favorite video game series of all time released a sequel. And so then my two best friends, we holed up into an apartment for 15 days solid and just played video games, and it was a great 2 weeks. But then we go home and we continue, and so this was a 3 month or 6 month stretch of living the sedentary lifestyle, and then that video game fades away and you're left with not being able to jog 5 miles. And so then you kind of say, all right, I'm going to get back at it on the first of the month, or on Monday, and then it doesn't happen. And so that was probably the big catalyst event that happened in 2012. And it sucks to kind of point to that, but it's literally what happened for me. It was throughout my life, I've found a lot of happiness in video games, but it's a detrimental hobby if you let it become that, if you're kind of predisposed to that, to the bad habits that come along with it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like that, maybe it wasn't an addiction, but it was something that you struggled with as far as balance in even the video game realm.
Oh, I mean, balance in my life. That's the one thing I have to figure out. And I've been talking to a therapist about how can I live life where it's not all or nothing? Because even I've been going for 20 days now on this new journey. And even today at 2 p.m., I'm all in. I have no desire to eat, bad food or quote unquote bad food or not work out. I don't have those desires. But I think in an ideal scenario at 2 p.m., I would say something like, hey, I can have 2 slices of pizza, because that is a normal serving size of pizza. But right now where I am, I'm like, all right, it's 2 p.m. I need to line up my protein shake. I need to line up my banana with a little bit of peanut butter, and that hits my allotment for my calories that I'm allowed to have at 2 p.m. And then after that, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do the thing. I just can't figure out in my brain how to say it's not always all or nothing. It's moderation. It's I can't figure that part out. And that's not uncommon. I mean, that is a common thing, but it is a big problem when you're talking about the next 50 years of my life. And therapy has been for me a place to articulate those feelings, but I have yet to hear the magic words of, oh, that's the problem, do X, Y, and Z, and then that'll be it. So that's the balance part of this is what I'm kind of looking at long term, and it's scary.
Well, especially if your personality structure and just the way that you view things your whole life for 35 years has been kind of that all or nothing. But it sounds like you have at least to start really good insight that that's what you need to do. That's the
Yeah,
long-term goal.
yeah. And I mean, self awareness can only take you so far.
Sure.
There's being
Sure.
aware of it, and then figuring out how to execute on those understandings. But yeah, that's the part I'm trying to figure out.
Well, so on your journey thus far, have you been able to get to the point where you're implementing, kind of that moderation as far as your food intake without like going too much into a calorie deficit, for example, or over exercising, for your fitness level right now versus just kind of taking the slow and steady approach?
Yeah. So a lot of it right now is what I would say is artificially implemented, where I'm forcing myself in order to form habits to not go. Like I walk every day between 20 and 35 minutes, but when I'm out there, I'm like, man, I could go for another hour. I could go for another hour and a half, or then do this and then go to the gym. And so I'm artificially limiting that. And the same thing with food is where there's always that nagging sensation of, man, if I just eat 1,300 calories today, I'll do it. I'll lose weight faster. And so there's that dangerous mentality. So I'm also artificially saying like, hey, even though I'm not necessarily hungry, I need to get that 2,000 calories, because I know in the past 6 times that I've done this, when I've said, all right, I'm going to get 1,400 calories every day and I'm going to work out for an hour and a half, it hasn't led to long-term success. And so now I'm like, all right, moderation is key. I have to do this reasonably. And even though I want to do more, maybe I want to walk more, I'm limiting myself to take it slow, because frankly, it's the only thing I haven't tried.
I'm sure part of your struggle with balance when it comes to food is it sounds like food for you is similar to alcohol with an alcoholic, where it's hard to just have one, right? Like slice of pizza, for example.
Absolutely.
But the conundrum you're in is that you still have to eat every day. And so what is that struggle like, where you have to be around the thing that you're addicted to. You have to smell it, you have to cook it, you have to prepare it, but you also have to be the one to stop yourself from going too far.
Yeah. I mean, there must be, 10,000 things on earth you can get addicted to that are unhealthy for you. And the three that you can't live without: air, water, and food. It's like I sometimes feel like the unluckiest person on the planet, where it's like I got food out of the 20,000 things that could I could become addicted to. And that it's a truly for those that haven't thought about that, it is a truly evil feeling of like, my God, that I have to eat every day. And my dad would say, yeah, it's akin to me waking up and having a little meth in the morning. And it's like, that's just, it's to have success, you kind of have to remove yourself from it. And so it is unfortunate that it's the one thing I need. But I mean, and on the complete opposite side, I am extremely fortunate that I'm not addicted to something that just, changes my personality or makes me become someone I'm not or becomes abusive or all the terrible things that come with alcoholism or substance abuse. So I am lucky in that regard, and I'm lucky that there's a wealth of resources and people that are enthusiastically engaged with me because they're going through the same struggles. And so it's a really great community. Anytime you're looking for help, there's just endless amounts of great people that are there to be there alongside you.
One of the things, I know this is a little bit off direction, but I'm just interested in your opinion on it, is kind of the body positivity movement that's going on. Kind of.
Yeah.
And so, what's your take on that? Being a guy who's struggling with this, and there'd be a surprised, on how many. Like I had to scour TikTok for guests. So there's a lot of people on there that just say I've got to accept myself for who I am, and I feel okay about my body. And do you think that's just a cope? That's kind of my take on it, honestly. But it's something that it's a movement at this point.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I know personally, when I'm at my worst, when I have 200 extra pounds and it's impossible to bend over or to tie my shoes or to do whatever, I'm not happy with myself. My assumption is, if you asked everybody that's 100 pounds more overweight, if they could flip a switch and be a healthy weight, most would take that. But I tend to not care or form opinions on the way others look. And that's not necessarily a cop-out to answer the question, but I would say the body acceptance movement is born out of a feeling that it literally doesn't matter what other people do as long as they're not harming others. And I think that's a basic tenet in my life is I want everybody to be happy. Now, I do think if you ask them if they truly are happy, a lot of them, and you could give them a truth serum, a lot of them would say no. But I don't spend a lot of time concerning myself with other people or the way they look, as long as nobody's hurting others. I think that a lot of it is coping, I would say, but it is a live and let live mentality for me.
So you mentioned that you've been in therapy. I'm curious if you've tried support groups or medication or other things to help you with your cravings or urges to eat.
Yeah. Support groups, Overeaters Anonymous, I went for several sessions. And because my dad has had so much success and great friendships forged through Narcotics Anonymous, that's why I attended Overeaters Anonymous. But I love support groups. I love checking in with others. But Overeaters Anonymous to me it was so repetitive and so mundane. We were saying the exact same things. There's not the problem with Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous versus Overeaters Anonymous is the hijinks you can find yourself when high on drugs or drunk on alcohol are a lot different. The depressing stories that are told at Overeaters Anonymous, where my dad ends up in Mexico with FBI teams surrounding his hotel. Overeaters Anonymous is a lot of us sitting in our living rooms eating while watching TV shows, and it's just kind of depressing and kind of repetitive. And there's only so many times you can hear the same, platitudes repeated before it's like, hey, I get it. And so I love support and community in the healthy clubs like running clubs or walking clubs or swimming clubs where we're being active, we're getting healthy. And Overeaters Anonymous has they're doing a great service for the people that it works for, but it was kind of a downer for me, and so I stopped going to that. But therapy's been great.
I know this, kind of goes against moderation, but
Yeah,
why not bariatric surgery? Because that way it's one of those things where once it's done and you lose the weight, you really can't intake a lot of food because your
yeah.
stomach is so much
Uh,
smaller.
I've always been interested in weight loss surgery, and the exposure I have to it, and this was 10 years ago, was that it was sort of a polarizing topic where some people, oh, that's the easy way out, or, it drove me crazy because sometimes you are kind of out of options. And weight loss surgery is a godsend, I would say, to the community of people that need it. Um, and there's always going to be conflicting information of, well, it doesn't change the mentality, but neither does eating right and exercising for 6 months. If you're if you're like me and it's either an on or off switch. So I am I would love if there was a doctor next door and he could perform the surgery for free, but it's as far as insurance goes, it's not a thing that's covered, at least under mine. And it's $20,000 to $30,000. And it's just not something that's realistic for me. I would, I would sign up today though, because I need all the help I can get, but, it's just it's a financial burden for people that don't have the means to just kind of do it.
Is there a part of you that's really drawn to the challenge or the struggle of the extreme physical challenges that you've done?
Yeah.
Like we've talked about, you haven't gone the boring route and just only measured your food, and
Right.
you really go all out. And so, is there, because of your personality, are you drawn to those things and saying, "Yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk across America"?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I my convictions in life are very simple. Is this would this be cool? And I had heard of a guy walking across America. And I was like, that would be cool. If I met someone that walked across America, that would be interesting, and I would have a conversation with them. And so it became a thing. Just like, yeah, why not? Why not do that? Why not have that on my resume? But yeah, I am drawn to certain things. Specifically, throughout my life, I've kept, it used to be in notebooks and now it's spreadsheets of just my stats. And maybe that's my love of sports and video games. I'm always drawn to tracking and recording stats and improvements, uh, and so if it's trackable, which is super conducive to running because there's all these different distances and you can kind of see improvements over the long run. If it's trackable, I'm always intrigued. And that's manifested itself in many ways. I picked up golf because of how trackable and how many stats there are associated with it. But I have found though that when the improvements start to plateau, I lose interest. And so golf was a big thing from 2013 to 2015, and then it just flatlined as far as my improvements, and I really haven't played since. I went yesterday for the first time in a long time to see if I could walk a round of golf. And so, yes, to answer your question, I'm always drawn to things that are cool or trackable if there are stats involved.
And so, do you have any aspirations of someday getting back to the point where you could run another marathon or an Ironman?
Yeah, I would say today I am not projecting out, sort of like I talked about earlier, artificially limiting myself. I'm really trying to fix the way my brain thinks. And if I get into that, like, hey, I need a 5K, I need a 5K, and then if I do that, I'm gonna need a 10K. If I get into that, it'll be like golf, where it's like after Ironman, there's nothing. Well, there's nothing realistic. I could run a 200-mile race, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm in a moment of time right now where I'm going against my instincts because I've seen those through, and they end up with me, you know, all or nothing and going back to nothing because I can't do another Ironman. Or if I did, it wouldn't be a novel thing anymore. And so right now, my dad's texting me, "Hey, what marathon are we doing next year? Let's start planning." It's a thing where I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to hold off on all that type of thinking until I kind of have a better grasp on my mental state, and straightening that out."
Sure. Well, I mean, this particular subject interests me a lot because I'm super into fitness myself. But I'm actually very different than you as far as I've never really struggled with weight, and and I'm at a really kind of good place.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I've also never run more than 10 miles at a time. And every day I do something, but it's kind of like once that endorphin get gets spiked, then I know it's kind of time for me to be done. And
Yeah.
then I just do it the next day. And for me, one of the things that has been helpful, or a sense of pride, which maybe you can relate on, is, and I don't know if you have, but I use an Apple Watch, or you could use a Garmin, but to get streaks going, for example.
Yeah.
So, it's it's once you get going, it's moderately easy to close your rings. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where once the rings are closed, you're done for the day. And then the
Right.
next day, but it's something where, like right now, I've got like a 4-year streak going,
Yeah.
and it's something that gives me that pleasure versus doing an Ironman.
Yep.
Just because I agree that it would take substantially more training than I'm already doing to get to that level,
Yeah.
and I'm an older guy than you, so it's one of those things where I concern myself about, potential joints,
Yeah.
and things like that. So I'm wondering if you have one of those devices to kind of, and maybe
Yeah.
are you able to look, oh, okay, and
Yeah. So
so you get it, right? But to, kind of look at it in a different way by saying, okay, I just want to kind of keep a streak going, but I want it to be nice and moderate, and and see
yeah.
those numbers go down consistently, and see, you close your rings on a daily basis.
It's my friend Will, my best friend Will, he has a 3-year streak of 10,000 steps, and it's sacred to him. He got caught in traffic at 11 o'clock at night the other night, and he had 9,200 steps, and so he got out and jogged around his car for 30 minutes, or for however long. And I have it absolutely appeals to me, but I don't get sacred about it. And so, like, I will cut ties with almost anything in my life with not a single thought. There was a podcast a couple of years ago, and it was titled "The Upside of Quitting," and it was, I always see the upside of quitting. It spoke to me. And uh, streaks, I see the appeal as someone that's kind of obsessed with numbers. But I will absolutely cut and run without another thought of streaks. One of my I have I have 6 sacred disciplines that I came up with, and one of them is the 6,000 steps. And thus far, I've been pretty religious about it. But if I went another 6 months and then I wasn't feeling it one day, I wouldn't put another thought into it. So I envy the people that are able to I've got 6 years of this. I'm not going to let that go by the wayside. And so I've got to get out there and do it. I just don't have that gene, and I do wish I did. But so far it's been working for me. 6,000 steps as opposed to 10,000 or some other goal. But
Hmm.
it's been great so far.
Well, and you can always up it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, again, trying to just kind of get that consistency, because anything that's going to be sustaining,
Yeah.
you're going to have to do for the rest of your life on one level or another. And so it's something where even if you have a couple kids, you have to kind of carve out some time, to go for an
Yeah.
early morning run or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. And so, kind of, have you thought about the long game as far as like saying, okay, right now I've got this goal to get at a healthy weight. But what about, again, implementing more of a program or a lifestyle, I should say, that you can maintain and sustain?
Yeah. It's $1 million question, and it's so it's so unanswerable in that any answer I give is subject to not meaning anything 2 years from now. I don't know. It scares me on a daily basis because I know, how far I can fall. I know I've had huge successes and it ultimately didn't matter. And my dad, from a young age, my dad has said, he's a writer and he says, show, don't tell, just do this stuff rather than tell me what you're going to do. And so there's no answer I can give that ultimately I couldn't just ignore. And so I can write down whatever I want, and I have, but ultimately it's about executing, and so it's a constantly it's a thing I'm thinking about every second of every day is how can I sustain this the rest of my life? And all I can do is implement new routines and new habits and, you know, keep them reasonable, and just hope they stick and surround myself with a support system that puts me in the best position to succeed.
How do you stay hopeful and motivated knowing that you've been there before and you've done it before, but you've also fallen back? So how do you stay motivated this time? And you seem extremely positive in your TikTok
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah. I'm not a I want some way to convey that when I'm at my worst physically, I'm still a pleasant and enthusiastic and joyful person. Um, and so when I'm at my worst, I'm still hopeful and still confident. There was never a moment in the last few years that I thought, man, I couldn't lose weight if I tried. It was always, I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like going through the things that it requires. Um, and then I have found that there will be moments of inspiration, that there will be moments of a yearning to be better. And I have always been pretty good at taking advantage of those. If you asked the people in my life, they would all say that he's never upset. He's never mad at anybody. He's never, bitter or resentful. I'm very lucky in that regard. But when it comes to putting desires into motion, I have always been very stubborn in maybe not doing those when I should. And so when I do take advantage of the moments of inspiration, motivation, I found that cool things happen. And so that's where I am now. But I was blessed with always a pretty hopeful and joyous outlook in my life. It's one of the things I've always, been pretty proud of.
Hmm. Can you tell us where TikTok came in? Because that's one of the things that I honestly commend you for, as far as, stepping on the scale and, being without your shirt, all those types of things, and, really just kind of owning it. And, being positive, but also, kind of showing the world where you're at right now. Honestly, I don't know if I'd be able to do that. And so, is this to kind of keep you accountable? Is this just to kind of share your journey? Is this something because of your background in, media and broadcasting? What's that about? Or it might be multi-layered, right?
When I worked, the only journalism I did was for my college newspaper, but I loved it. And for 2 years, I was the features editor. I would go around campus or the community and tell stories of people. I would take a photo of them and I would tell whatever story they had to tell. And I was always drawn to the stories where they did something that would cause people to be like, oh, that was really brave, or oh, that was really a cool way for them to do that thing that I'm profiling. And I found the TikTok stuff is coming from a selfish desire to engage with people and support that. If you share the journey, if you share the successes and the failures, you're going to have a better chance of success. And so I love the helpfulness and the supportiveness of people that are struggling with weight. And those conversations and relationships have always appealed to me and been fruitful. And so I would say on day one, if I made a video and I said, hey, my name's Ben, I'm going to try to lose weight, let's do this. A. And then on the B side was, hey, my name's Ben, here I am with no shirt and no pants on. Here's how my body looks. And here's literally me stepping on a scale and how much I weigh. That's a more engaging way. And you would say the downside. So naturally, hey, why not do that? Well, the downside is that it'd be embarrassing, or people would judge me, or people would think it's gross. But nobody thinks that. If I see a video or if I see a story of someone that's like, hey, I'm going to change my life, here's me with no clothes on and here's me stepping on a scale, that's interesting. That's compelling. That's fun to watch. That's engaging. And it's just a more interesting story. And so it could be, in the wrong hands, that could be a bad thing, because are they just doing it for fame? It's a more interesting story. Well, life isn't a story. I think I'm fairly responsible. I haven't been, doing it for the gram. There's nothing that I am doing in my day-to-day life where it's like, I wouldn't do that, except I need a video. I mean, most of the videos I make are me saying, hey, it's day 20. Here's some thoughts I'm having on the day. But I am also using this as a way to learn how to video edit. And so I am trying to find compelling ways to tell stories. And so I think most decisions I make are because I think it's a more interesting way to go about it, or it's, more fun, or something like that. But it's been a lot of fun so far.
It sounds like you found the version of Overeaters Anonymous, but with all the positive stories, right? Because it's like you're telling the positive story and you're getting a lot of positive feedback, it sounds like, from other people that are in your situation.
Yeah. I mean, no one wants to hear, hey, I had a bad day. Well, we want to know what happened to make it a bad day. And so being engaging, and a lot of people are struggling with this. And so there's always some interesting stories and people, sending me messages and emails that just really means a lot. And so, this is a journey that almost has to be shared. It's so rare. It's so rare to hear of people succeeding in a weight loss journey without some sort of support system around them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your weight now? Because it's been 20 days and I introduced you at 439. I want to give you the chance to tell
Yeah.
us your actual
Every
weight.
Friday, every Friday, I weigh in every Friday. And so 5 days ago, I was down to 421. So I'm down 17 pounds, and in a couple days, I'll know, where I am this week. And I'd say it's really, really important to note that at 440 pounds, weight is going to come off and quickly, because you hear, 1 to 2 pounds a week is a realistic weight loss goal. Well, that's for somebody that's 30 or 50 pounds overweight. But when your body is pumping this hard to keep yourself alive at 450 pounds, it does come off much quicker than at a lower weight. And so there's not much to glean from this except it's coming off fast, and it's going to continue to come off fast, despite me trying to keep it realistic. But when you have this much weight to lose, it happens quickly at first.
Sure. And this is a question that I don't think we ever asked you in the pre-screen, but
Yeah.
if you anticipate losing, 200 pounds, how long do you anticipate that to take? And I know that might be difficult to answer. And then B, I would think you might have a lot of loose skin as a result of that. And would surgery be an option then, or an imperative? I guess I would say.
Yeah. I mean, and so I was 24 when I lost 140 pounds, and I went from 365 to 215, so 150 pounds, and I had no loose skin. It was crazy. It was totally surprising. And I thought, well, I'm young, maybe skin is more elastic. So the reality is that losing 220 pounds, which is what I have to do, I'm probably going to have some loose skin. I might not be, because there's some pictures of people that just have ungodly amounts of loose skin, and you have to have surgery to kind of feel comfortable. And I've met so many people that have gone through that. That's something I would absolutely do. I just have to wait and see. And living with loose skin as opposed to living with 220 extra pounds is a no-brainer. But yeah, I mean, surgeries of any kind to make yourself feel comfortable are always on the table for me. And then, so a timetable, I mean, yeah. So doing the math, if I lose 25 pounds a month for the first, 4 months, and then it's going to start to slow down at about 350 pounds. And then maybe 10 pounds thereafter. So you're talking about 100 pounds in 4 months, and then another 10 months. It could be anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years. I do want to figure out a way to lose it in a more meaningful way, in a kind of slow and steady pace. But the reality is that it will come off fast, especially early on. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm going to be TikToking every day.
Yeah,
year,
that's what I was going
sure.
to ask next. Is does that, you seem like a super chill, laid back guy, but I would feel a lot of pressure every day to be documenting on TikTok, especially if it ends up being a 2-year process.
Yeah. So there's not a day that goes by that I'm not having some interesting conversation with my wife or my dad, or reading an article. I didn't really have an idea of what I was going to make a video on today, and then I saw a Reddit thread where a nurse had a transfer order for a patient, and the weight of the patient on the paper that was getting transferred in was 430 pounds. And the nurse said, I assumed it was a typo. because it was so far unrealistic for that nurse, he or she, to see 430, that they assumed it was a typo. And then you say, I weigh so much that if somebody wrote my weight on a piece of paper, a medical professional would assume that it's a mistake. That's a sobering thought, and it's a fun thought. I do this to myself where it's like, that's incredible. I mean, that is noteworthy. If you took every NFL player on every roster, 1,500 NFL players, I'm the heaviest one by 80 pounds. There's the heaviest NFL player is 370 pounds, and I'm 80 pounds beyond that. And I'm 5'11. And so it's just remarkable statistics to say out loud. If you took the biggest men on earth, I'm beyond them. If you take morbid obesity, which is a BMI of 40, I'm at 60, deathly obese. I'm 20 points beyond that on the BMI. I'm 33% more obese than the title they came up that was called morbidly obese. I'm beyond that by miles. I'm 33% more obese than morbidly obese. These are remarkable statistics. And so there's always some thought that I can talk about for a minute. I'm having an interesting conversation with my wife, and I'm like, oh, that's a good topic. Or people ask questions and I can respond to a comment. So the TikToks are my streak, I guess, in that it's always pretty easy to say, oh, that's interesting enough, I'm going to make a minute-long video about that. And that's what I have come to love about TikTok, is that I used to blog 5 times a day. And so that was much more difficult, because I could think about this for the next 20 minutes and make a pretty quick and easy video, which is what I did today. I saw an article about a nurse who said this, and I thought, that's remarkable. I need to put my thoughts on that out there.
Mm-hmm. Are you prepared to share the dark days and sort of those moments where, the weight's been dropping off and now you've hit a wall and now it's not, and, things might get pretty bleak or dark emotionally, mentally? Are you prepared to share those days as well? Yeah.
Or illness or an injury, that could set you back.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's the same reason that, shootings and car wrecks and plane crashes lead the news, is that those are the more interesting because of human nature. And so I look forward to it. But 20 days in, there's not a lot of negatives yet. And so there's going to be, I might go a week and gain a pound, and I kind of relish that opportunity to take on the challenge of that when it does happen. And people will always, be there, and they'll relate to that. We love challenges, and so there's no hesitancy to share the bad parts as they come.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate your honesty and accountability on this whole journey you're on. Where can everyone find you on TikTok to follow your 200-pound weight loss journey? It's
at Benjamin Does Life. I have had Ben Does Life for 15 years now in various forms, and some guy on TikTok is squatting on it. And so it's Benjamin Does Life on TikTok, which I don't negotiate with terrorists, so I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of DMing him.
Okay. Benjamin Does Life. Well, we wish you the best of luck, and we'll definitely be following your journey.
Maybe we have a follow-up podcast in a year or so.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you guys for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we'd just like to ask our viewers to tell us what they think. If Ben has broken a stereotype, drop a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth interviews that break stereotypes.
Thanks a lot,
Ben.
Thanks, guys.